Hello interwebs and welcome to my channel. I hope you're doing well, and welcome to Jessie Recommends, a series that I do right here on this channel every single Monday where I sort of have an unscripted, loose discussion about a work of art or media or anything like that that really spoke to me, really meant a lot to me, and I share why it did all of those things, why something felt so important to me. So for today's video, I actually want to take this Jessie Recommends video to talk about Season 5 of The Expanse, which recently wrapped up over on Amazon Prime just last week, because as I've said before in several other videos, The Expanse is easily one of my favorite science fiction shows, especially on right now, but just in general, which is saying something considering how big a sci-fi fan I am. And I'm also a huge fan of the Expanse books. So while I've already done some videos on the Expanse, and I also plan on doing a sort of bigger, more scripted research discussion of the philosophy and ideas behind the Expanse, I just want to take this chance to talk about why I really loved Season 5 of the Expanse, and basically, like I said, give you my unscripted review of the season. Season 5 of the Expanse follows one of my favorite books in the entire series, Nemesis Games, which focuses on, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the show, focuses on Marco and Naros, one of the Belters who sort of like split off from and created his own Belter military faction, attacking both Earth and Mars in a devastating terrorist attack that basically destroys and kills millions and millions of people and lives, and completely changes up the political balance of the Sol system right at the time when the Sol system's importance is in a very precarious position due to the opening of the ring gates and the leading to new worlds that we saw in previous seasons of the show. So right up front, with that setup, you can already tell that I love the season because, as I spoke about in many of my videos, I love politics, and that's one of the reasons that I love The Expanse. It would have been so easy for the writers of The Expanse, both in the books and the show, to focus in on the ring gates. We last season really focused in like the ring gates, what it's like to settle new systems, sort of colonizing new planets, the worry of the existential threat of the aliens behind everything, and sort of like Holden and the main crew of the show, the main characters in the show, sort of being worried about that sort of like existential alien larger than life threat. So it would have been so easy to sort of continue on that thread. And what I love about Nemesis Games, and this season in particular, is that it pulled back from the sort of more bigger alien philosophical existential questions to focus more in on, while it may seem like a big sort of solar system-wide problem, the sort of more human-level decisions and the more politics-driven stuff of just the factional fight between Earth, Mars, and the Belt, and sort of bringing to a head all of the trauma and intrigue and basically the political infighting that has been happening throughout the entire series. So yes, there's a lot of like stuff like the overall world has been dealing with and the overall like balance of the galaxy here in this season, but I love that this season just honed in on a smaller thing, and I really like that it finally dealt with the plight of the Belters. Marco Naros is a truly wonderful villain for this season because, as I did a whole video on him, he is actually incredibly justified. We've seen with the Belters that they have been fighting a fight against Earth and Mars and their sort of dominance of the planet or of the galaxy for such a long time and have been trying to fight for their own rights, that it makes sense that someone like Marcos, who would stand up for the Belt, who would finally try to unify the different Belter factions into one whole, would take this step, this horrifying step of killing millions of people that is probably an over unnecessary, like psychotic action to take, but one that comes out of a very justifiable route. And so I like that Marco is such an intriguing character because he is justified in some way, shape, or form, but he takes to such a level that it's really incredibly dangerous. And also, he himself is just a narcissistic psychopath or sociopath. I forget the distinction between the two. And the actor who plays Marcos just portrays it wonderfully as this sort of charismatic lead figure who is able to bring people into his sphere of influence and able to, speak and be very, like I said, charismatic and bring people to his cause while also still being very sociopathic. And I like that the show brings that down to that sort of political idea down to a human level, as it always does. Every season of the show has just been a human level discussion of all these things, and I just absolutely adored that. This is directly showcased with his relationship with Naomi Nagata, his ex-lover who he had a child with and was a main character on the show for all the previous seasons. Naomi and Dominic Tripper, who plays Naomi, did a brilliant performance performance this season, fighting for the soul of her son and trying to wrestle control of her son, which highlights, like I said, the sort of power and charisma that Marco has on a political level, on a human level, because you're seeing this fight for the ideology of their son between Naomi and Marco, and you just see it just wonderfully takes that sort of political dynamic that he shows and makes it play out personally, and it's even more effective because Naomi herself is a belter. She is someone to directly sort of contrast his views, and isn't like sort of like someone from Earth who would sort of have this political weight behind him, but is someone that he can sort of directly bounce off of from the same background and ideology. And it's just, Dominic Tripper just shows such strength throughout the season that she is it is just so beautifully portrayed, the amount of strength and will that she shows, and yet also the vulnerability, the moments where she like shares with her son that she was suicidal, that she tried to kill herself, that she tried to find him, and how she fought Marco, and how he pushed back against her and leading her to depression and things like that was also wonderful. Her strength of will against other people in the belt, the other belters that she stands up to, while also trying to be vulnerable as well throughout that. She just so wonderfully plays the vulnerability and the strength that Naomi has throughout the season. And I absolutely cannot praise her enough. She was easily the MVP. There is one episode this season, I believe it's episode 8, where pretty much there's an entire sequence that has zero dialogue and is all reliant on Naomi just showing her strength of getting out of a situation. And the show does not over-explain. It does not tell you exactly what she's doing. It just shows you that she's going through all these steps to try and build out and save herself on the ship that she's been marooned on. And I absolutely adored just her performance. It was just so fantastic. But also highlights one of the other strengths of the show is the science aspect of it. I love that the show just, as always, shows really real science to it. Like, you see like what it's like to go through like high G environments, to worry about fuel, to have to zip around gravity wells and things like that. All of that is so well done, but it's not over explained to the audience. This is sort of taken as fact. Again, that's highlighted in the Naomi scenes, where we see things where like she's trying to manipulate a signal or worry about the lack of oxygen that she has, but the show never like points out, it's like, look, she's running out of oxygen. It just sort of takes it as like a thing that people would sort of pick up on, just based on how the performance of the actress and how she's breathing and how she's losing breath every single time. So I just love the sort of naturalism of the show and the scientific groundedness of the show as well. The other thing too I want to mention that I really love this season is, again, just focusing on the belter side of it, is Drummer. Drummer is a truly unique character. I like her character in the books quite a bit, but the character in the show is kind of an amalgam of several different belter characters, and so she's sort of kind of different from how she is in the books. And I think the actress who plays Drummer is also a strong powerhouse performance here. All the women, I mean, all the actors in general on The Expanse are truly phenomenal, but the women on the show, from Drummer to Naomi to Avasarala, hopefully I'm saying her name right, to Bobby as well, are all just really dynamic and arranged of really well written and discussed women, which I always think is a highlight to see in science fiction shows that up until recently, I think Battlestar Galactica started the big turn for that, but up until recently didn't really have a lot of that sort of diversity of female performances. So highlight to that. I mean, all the actors in the show are really wonderful. The guy who plays Amos also does a fantastic job this season as well. But Drummer is just a true highlight. I love how she, again, shows another side of the belt to sort of bounce off of Marco, how she's someone who is like, she does also want to fight for the belt. She does believe in the belt. She is sort of a military woman, and yet she is able to bounce off of Marco in that she also does not believe that this should have gone this far, that Marco is taking things too far and endangering the lives of belters, and sort of showing the hard place that she's put in, where she's like, well, you've now forced the hand of like everyone in the belt to either join you or be left without protection against Earth and Mars, who are going to retaliate regardless because of your actions. And so I just thought, again, the infighting and political intrigue and the dynamicism of the politics of the belt was just so well portrayed between Naomi, Marco, and Drummer. Truly wonderfully done. The other thing I loved about the season, besides the big politics of it all, was that it split up our main characters, and we got to see sort of like the Empire Strikes Back of the season, with all the characters going off in different places. I think the person who got short-shrifted the most was Holden, especially in the latter half of the season. Holden didn't really have a ton to do except for to sort of run after Naomi and run after the sort of MacGuffin of the proto-molecule, which will have an interesting stuff going forward into further seasons, but in this season it's very much like a MacGuffin that he's sort of chasing after. So especially in the latter half of the season, Holden didn't get a ton of to do. I really like the actor, but sort of just not a lot for him to do. I will also, like I already called out, I love Amos's story here. Also bringing back Mao from previous seasons, sort of giving a redemptive arc to her character. I thought was nice to sort of see like her sort of seeing herself as a monster and trying to fight to sort of bring herself back to humanity, and actually drawing out more humanity in Amos. Amos is such a fantastic character because he is also in a way like Marcos. He's a bit sociopathic, or he basically he doesn't have a lot of emotion, and so he is unable to sort of directly figure out morals for himself, and he sort of adjusts his morals based on the situation that he's in, and the people around him help move him and influence him to make good decisions. And so I like that sort of without a moral compass, we see Amos sort of like lose track of that a little bit, and he's sort of brought back by Mao, a character who herself was sort of fighting to find her own morality. So instead of bouncing off of someone like Holden, who is a paragon of virtue throughout the entire first 2 seasons, it was nice to see Amos sort of bouncing off a character who was much more morally ambiguous, but still sort of finding that light and sort of them uplifting each other and showing how much Amos has grown too in these past few seasons, how he's become a better person, even if he still loses his way to a bit. And the exploration of Earth and what's going on Earth after these big terrorist attacks and seeing things from the ground level, and seeing his previous life was all really fantastically done and just showcased the terror and humanity of that moment. I want to highlight some of the filmmaking choices too. This brings me to some of the filmmaking choices of the season. There's some really brilliant directing. Television shows quite often don't get the chance to highlight sort of directorial style as much as you would in like say a movie, and so it's really impressive that The Expanse is able to have these sort of dramatic flourishes on the visual level. The 2 moments that I think stood out to me most, just because they're the most recent episodes of the season, was episode 9, where we got a full one-take shot of this assault on this missile base that they were using to escape Earth, that Amos and Mao were using to escape Earth. If you go back and watch it, it's a one-take shot that goes from like outside the building, this attack, all the way inside the building as they escape and get on the missile to get the rocket to get off of Earth. Fantastic, beautifully done, and showcases like and highlights the action of that moment. Wonderfully done. But the even more significant moment that I thought was absolutely beautifully shot, as I said before, was the stuff with Naomi. When Naomi gets rescued at the end of the season, when she jumps off the ship to try and kill herself and save Alex and Bobby from rescuing her, the shot just stays on her the entire time. We see her face as she almost dies and then gets rescued at the last minute, and just a close-up shot on her face as she's drifting through space. Even as you hear Bobby, and it's all done in sound effects saving her, but you just stay on Naomi's performance, and it was just such a strong performance, but just beautifully portrayed, and a strong choice to just stay there. So the visual choices of the season were absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. I also should mention I love the politics of other stuff going on with Mars and Earth. There was a little less for these things to go on, but I like seeing that Mars has sort of fallen into decline now that there are other planets going on and other solar systems. So Mars being terraformed seems like such a needless task, and so Mars society has fallen. And you got to see that again on the human level with both Alex and Bobby, and sort of the mystery around like how did Marco get his ships and things, and the sort of setup for future seasons of what may be going on with the sort of Martian military and the sort of stuff going on there, leading into the final shot of the season that I won't spoil here in case you haven't seen it. But I love that sort of mystery and sort of the fall of Martian society, but we didn't get a ton of that. The bigger stuff we got, as always, is usually Earth with Avasarala, who Avasarala, always fantastic to see her. She is such a strong-willed woman. It was nice to see her off her game here a little bit. Like she was, instead of working at the top of the system, she is sort of like at the bottom rung and knows what needs to be done, but can't affect it as she would have been able to previously, and has to watch in horror as her suspicions are confirmed and Earth is attacked and millions are dead, and sort of her scrambling to try and have power in a situation that she normally would have had power, but now does not, and is fighting the good fight. And you've seen her growth as well as a character, because in season 1, she was just ready to kill Belters. She was ready to murder them, but by this point in the season, despite the fact that Belters like Marco have done horrible things, she understands the nuance of a situation so much more, and is able to see that like you cannot radicalize the Belters against Earth if you could take this task. And so I just like her sort of like trying to have more power, but also being much more nuanced of a character, and have a much more political enlightenment on how the Belters are actually really real people. You're sort of seeing her growth over the season. So fantastic job there. One other thing that I kind of want to mention that I've kind of been avoiding a little bit is Alex, played by Cass Avanar. Hopefully I'm saying his name right, though I don't have a ton of respect for the guy. To be fair, Cass was an actor who, before this season came out, was accused of a lot of sexual assault. There's a lot of allegations against him, and I know a lot of the cast and crew of the show sort of supported the victims in that situation, and Cass was let go from the next season of the show, season 6, but obviously I'm sure this show was being written and filmed when those allegations came out. And I think that the show kind of did the best they could to sort of limit his screen time in this season. I like Alex as a character. He's actually one of my favorite characters in the show, so I was sort of sad to see that, but I understand the real world necessities of that. So I appreciate that he was still part of the show, he was still in it, that they didn't short shrift his story as much as they could have given the character, but also sort of limiting the screen time of this actor who, without, going too deep into the allegations, has been accused of some pretty heinous stuff. And so, understanding the sort of push and pull of real world impulses there, I think they did the best job of it. And the ending of the season where they killed off his character, I think was effectively done. Again, you could kind of see that the actor didn't come in to film those scenes because they probably fired him. And I think the way they paid that off was well done. Sort of like it was properly emotional. It showed the weight that the character had. Like, it paid true tribute to that character of him sacrificing his life to save Naomi, and Naomi feeling guilty about that and sort of losing one's family and things like that. It sort of tied into the themes of the season. So I think it actually tied into the themes of the season, tied into the importance of the character really well, while also sort of dealing with the real world ramifications of the actor behind it. So I true praise to the writers for, in a very precarious and hard situation, for doing the best they could. And I think that for what they had to deal with, I think they did a great job in all of that there. So overall, I think The Expanse was a truly fantastic 5th season. I think the only knock against it I had is it felt a little bit drawn out towards the end of the season. I think it moved a little bit slower than it needed to sort of hit 10 episodes. But I also worry that I'm kind of feeling that way because everything was good. I feel like I'm feeling that way a little bit because I know there are 3 more books, and these last 3 books in the series are actually some of my favorite books in the series, and we only have 1 more season of the show, so I'm like, oh no, they're gonna have to short shrift my 3 favorite books in the series because they're only gonna have 1 season to do those 3 books. But there actually have been hints online that possibly that there might be like a movie series that goes on after the show, or another spin-off show or something like that. My hope and fingers crossed would be they end season 6 on a sort of cliffhanger heading into a movie, which would fit perfectly with what happens in the books. And they do like a made-for-TV movie on Amazon Prime that sort of completes the story and has all the budget of like 10 episode seasons, but in 2 hours to sort of complete the story in a really bombastic way. I think that would be a really fun thing to do. I don't want to overhype expectations on that, but there has been some hints on that on the Expanse's Twitter account. So I'm hoping for that. But regardless, if not, I am very excited for season 6, and I hope that given that they had a lot of lead time, that they'll be able to complete the story in a very satisfactory way. I am just a little bit concerned, given how many more books there are left, how dense those books are, and how cool those books are. I think there's some really, really cool stuff in those books dealing with sort of like fascism, the ideas of fascism, politics as well, and also this sort of existential alien threat that comes back into it in those final few books. So truly excited for season 6, but a little bit concerned about how much time they have in order to complete that, given how much source material they have to go through. But potentially maybe some prizes in store for us in terms of expanding the show beyond that. But in terms of this actual season, I think it was really, really wonderful. I think the characters were very effectively done. I think there was some smart politics in it, some great writing, amazing performances, amazing visual direction, all coming together to make truly one of my most favorite science fiction shows on TV right now. I cannot recommend it enough. I'd love to hear all your thoughts, though, about The Expanse Season 5 down in the comments. Please let me know if you liked The Expanse Season 5, you hated it, you enjoyed it, things like that. I also don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more reviews. Jessie recommends discussion of pop and geek culture and its importance to learning more about humanity. And also, I have a Patreon page that you can help support me on as well. But beyond all of that, I am so glad that you stopped by and hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. Patrons, you are my patrons. You are so awesome. So here are your names: Catherine Lambeth, Eli Berg Moss, Ashley Allen, Bo Kikio, Miranda Janelle, Ashlyn Solstice, Greg Gillum, Stephen Kleinard, Camille T, Randy Thompson, Stephen Schuhart, Boyd Earl, and Mary Beth Earl, Wellington Marcus, Wayne Twitchell, Rick Osborne, Roar, Ish the Mad, Piston Twisted Garage, Dominic Noble, Buttoneer, John Steele, Michael Beam, Gavin Robinson, Carmen Olson, William Stewart, Amanda Ronyadania, Hannah F., Nathan Olson, Andrew Jorgensen, BBD, Jason Knott, Maeve, saying it twice because I can, Andrew K., Bree Beecher, Jasmine, Nathan Steele, Skylar Gray, Lily, Tiffany Danger, Sean Piper, Wen Dizzle Bizzle, Bush, Jane Packard, Geek Filter, Mari Neckard, Jacob Tovar, Polymenia, Celestial Dawn, Jean Mithune, Sarah Bystam, Din, Mark the Edge, Corey Honkanen, and Vale the Pale, Dunn, Lysa, W. Randy Eady, Andrew Lamoureux, Zone 1 Librarian, and finally, Michael Hardy. I am sorry for that, but seriously, thank you so much, patrons. You really mean the world to me, and you really are changing my life, even if I may have changed your life for the worst with my singing. Thank you so much for all of your support.